Have a good meeting. You're good.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the April 27th, 2026 school committee meeting to order tonight here at 6:09 p.m. We'll start with public comment.
Hi. My name is Liz O'Reilly, 179 Maple Street, Scituate. I just came tonight because I wanted to address that you're discussing the new school name tonight. And as you're aware, I did make a public records request for the meetings of that committee and emailed all of you about my concerns of transparency and the process. I received 3 things: a timeline, which was already on the website, and 2 summaries. No agendas, no minutes, no attendance, nothing. I then read the minutes of the meeting from 3/16, and I'm going to just read you the public comments very quickly that were posted. Ms. Brandolini opened the public comments and welcomed students to speak first. Scituate High School student Ava Schilberg and Naomi Summers spoke in support of the options for the new school naming. Parents of the elementary school and residents of Scituate also spoke and shared their feelings and thoughts about the new school naming and the new school redistricting. Crystal Hoffman, a parent of a 3rd grader at Cushing, expressed concerns over 3rd grade students being split up for 5th grade. After careful considering all comments, Interim Superintendent Tom Rabb shared that he would be willing to separate that class from the overall redistricting for now, for the conversation right now. There were 4 other people that spoke at that meeting, I being one of them. We spoke about transparency concerns, open meeting law, the names that were put forward. There is no mention of any of those comments that were made, only that the positive comments were made. This appears to be selective reporting. As a reader of the minutes that this committee approved, there is an issue that no one understands, that there was concerns about other areas to be addressed. Tonight, when you discuss this, I ask that in the process you become transparent, document, and report both sides for or against going forward.
Good evening, Joseph Gibbons, 223 Gannett Road. I'd just like to second what Liz said. I spoke, Deidre Kulovich spoke, and there was nothing in the minutes about any of us. And we all had issues and dissented from the 3 names that were determined. And I think in the meeting minutes, you need to communicate what people said at the meeting. That's it.
Okay, see any hands raised virtually or anyone else in person that wants to make any public comments tonight? No. Okay. Our students are not with us this evening, some are traveling. We have some action items on our agenda. We have our approval of our March 30th and our April 13th minutes. Questions or comments on those from the committee? Separately or just? I think we do them.
One of them, not all of us.
Separately because, right, so I wasn't here on March 30th and Peter also was not here on March 30th, so we have moved those for that reason. He and I will probably abstain from those.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the minutes from March 30th, 2026.
I'll second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so 3 ayes and 2 abstentions.
I can't hear. 3 ayes and 2 abstentions.
So Jason Brandolini abstained, I'm not here. Lindblom, Gorkowski, and Fenwick.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, and we have our April 13th minutes. Assuming Ms. Gorkowski will abstain from those, if she's not present for that meeting. Whoever the four of us were for our quick meeting, which was the same night as town meeting.
All right, I'll make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the minutes from April 2026.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Gorkowski abstains.
Thank you.
The rest of us agrees. Okay, great. Okay, we have an out of the country field trip to Paris and Normandy for approval.
I'd like to welcome Ms. Sophia Lydell, one of our French teachers at the high school, to discuss this trip.
Hi.
This is very nerve-wracking, actually.
Don't be nervous. We are happy to have you here as well.
So I came to seek approval for the trip we've run now, I think for almost 2 decades. This would be taking place next year. Dates to be determined, but over the April break. And it would be with the intention of keeping it to the senior class of next year, as long as they are participating in a French class. And with the hopes of then continuing a yearly trip. But we are planning the trip as it's been run, as I ran it when I went last year. So it would be a time in Normandy, but really the essential part would be the homestay for the students, so they can utilize what we've been teaching them for the last 6 years.
Fantastic. Any questions or anything? We have all of this in our backup appendix, so we know what's to expect here. Questions, anyone?
I have a question. So the French students will come here first?
Yeah. So-
September?
From my understanding, things got a bit wonky after COVID, where we kind of have a lag between when the French students come and when we go. So we're trying to get it back on track, so it's back year to year. But essentially, we would be going next April, and then the students that will be hosting our students will come in the fall, the following year. So we're just trying to make it so it's back to having the same exchange families, which having a lag has created issues with that. So it can be solved, I think, over a 1 year span, but that is our end goal, so that the exchange is a true exchange between the two families.
So if it's just for seniors next year?
Yes,
So
and then
they-
afterwards, the following year, we would have the juniors. How did we work it out with the, 1 second. Yeah, so with the following year, we would do it with the juniors to travel, so that we could do that back to back.
Okay, I'm just curious, so that when the following September, the French students that the seniors stayed with.
Yeah, so they're gonna,
But then
so
seniors
no,
might
because
have-
there's 2 classes in France as well, so we're trying to consolidate the 2 groups, which is, it's a very, I can go through the sort of planning process, that's why it's
Well,
multi-year.
My daughter's in Spain right now, so.
Oh, I see, love it, yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's
just
great.
wondering, so we had the Spanish student this previous September.
Exactly.
So she's now staying with her.
Exactly,
But if you have the seniors that go in April.
yes.
Well, some of those seniors might not even be here.
That is correct, so we
Okay.
will re-erase almost and start it at that point, that's why we're making it strictly
Okay.
a senior
Okay.
trip next year.
Okay.
Usually we combine juniors and seniors.
Okay.
exchange will start.
Yeah, okay, all right, I got it, I was.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
She's having an amazing.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was just curious when you will determine the exact dates. I see there's a window.
Yep.
Like, will it just be determined according to
So
flights,
we're
logistics, that
looking
type
at
of
flights,
thing?
that, and we're also waiting for France to confirm their dates.
Okay.
I would like to, obviously with everything that's happening right now, we're just it's a waiting game, especially with flights, but predominantly what we're waiting for is on France's side to confirm There are dates because usually our vacations don't match up, but they seem to constantly be matching up recently, so that's problematic for families who are traveling to do homestays. So we're trying to make it in a way that works with the families and also facilitates as many homestay days for our students, so it doesn't just become a trip, but it remains an exchange experience.
And for our end, that's okay. Not exact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my.
Yeah.
Moving around a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a very narrow window, because it's a 9-day trip and you're doing it as a 10-day window. So it's not,
Yes.
but I was just curious.
Yeah.
What was the decision? Thank you.
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the out-of-country field trip to Paris and Normandy for 4/15/2027 to 4/25/2027 approximately. As presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Assistant Superintendent Lynch, we're going to talk about the new school redistricting plan.
Thank you. This time I'd like to invite up Mr. Matthew Cropper from Cropper GIS. He's going to sit right here at the guest table as we go through our slides. So in the next few minutes, I'll just provide a little bit of a refresher of our process so far related to redistricting. And then Matt will talk about one of the specifics related to option 3. And then our goal is to make a recommendation for the consideration of the school committee that keeps in line with the deadlines of our process. So this slide just reminds everybody about our guidelines for redistricting. So just as a piece of history, on December 9th, Mr. Cropper was here virtually, gave an overview of Cropper GIS, what the goals were related to redistricting, our move from 4 elementary schools to 3, and how we would design a process that would essentially change the map for all of our schools in Scituate because we're moving from 4 schools to 3. So some of those goals were making sure that we gave the public an opportunity for feedback, as well as minimizing the social emotional impact on students. So one of our key criteria was trying to be balanced class size and also be as minimally disruptive as possible. 2 additional guiding principles were keeping families and neighborhoods together. Students who typically went to school together, our goal was to keep them together, as well as offering opportunities to collect feedback and improve our models based on input from families and other constituencies. So here are the 5 redistricting priorities, as I've mentioned: balancing enrollment across all 3 schools with 20 students per classroom. To the extent possible, keeping students close to home. We all have discussed how now, with the design of our 3 schools, many of them are located on the east side of town. We know that we have a large portion of our great town, which exists on the west side of 3A. So we do want everybody close to home, but our schools are sort of all on that side. So we acknowledge that's a change for many of our families. We want to minimize the impact, maintain our neighborhoods, and try to make transportation work as effectively as possible. This chart just has the timeline that we laid out in December. So on December 9th, like I said, Matt was here virtually, gave us the public information session. We held a public information session on March 4th when 2 options were presented and feedback was collected. Based on that feedback, we went back and offered another public session on the 6th, where we reviewed options 1 and 2, and also then produced option 3 for the review of the public, kept the survey open, and closed our survey just last week to make sure that we could have captured everybody's feedback. Then you'll see tonight in purple is April 27th, when the district is making its recommendation to the committee, and the committee would decide on May 18th. These are just definitions for review. I think we've all heard these several times. One piece I would just point out that is a common confusable is that when you see utilization percentages, those percentages reflect the extent to which we are meeting our 20 students per class target. So when you see a 97% utilization, that doesn't mean that the building is nearly full. It means we've almost perfectly achieved our target of 20 students per class. We just want people to know that our classes could handle more than that if we needed to adjust. That's just a little bit more on utilization. At the bottom of this slide, it just provides some detail on what led to the development of option 3. So when we presented options 1 and 2, we collected a lot of feedback about certain parts of town and how the students at Cushing were redistributed. So in the 4th bullet, I just want to review that we wanted to reduce the impacts of Wampatuck Elementary. That means maintaining the Minot neighborhood at Wampatuck, reducing some of the impacts to Jenkins, and keeping our 20 students per class size target, while also providing a plan that would hold for 20 years. In the history of the district, we know that there was some minor redistricting at different times. This led to disruptions for some of our families and schools. And so really the goal here, working with Mr. Cropper, is to produce a plan that will be consistent for 20 years. And based on the review of the school side team and our internal planning team, we recommend to the school committee for consideration that option 3 best meets the priorities that have been outlined through the process. And that is our recommendation to the committee this evening. These are 2 maps that show the current elementary school zones in Scituate. On the right-hand side is the completed option 3 recommendation. I know it probably appears small. Behind Mr. Gates and Ms. Fenwick, you'll see on the wall a larger version. So perhaps at a convenient time during the meeting, if you need to see it more clearly, that's a more accurate representation without the planning blocks on it. But to talk about those impacts specifically, Mr. Cropper is going to walk us through the changes that were made, or the improvements that were made to the first 2 options in a little bit more detail. So Mr. Cropper, will hand it over to you to talk about the changes that were made to result in option 3.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Matthew Cropper, Cropper GIS. As it was described, this is the recommendation, and we're zoomed in here on the current Cushing zone, which you see is the black outline. Prior options that we were working through had more movement than what the recommendation has. There were areas that were moved from Wampatuck to the new school, and also Jenkins to Wampatuck as we were trying to model options. That was given, we got feedback from that about there are other ways to balance and utilization and meet our objectives without moving as many students. And so what we've done in the recommendation is reverted back so that anybody who currently goes to an existing school other than Cushing would remain at their school, and of course the new elementary school, but nobody from Wampatuck is moved out of Wampatuck, and nobody from Jenkins is moved out of Jenkins in this recommendation. The area in green that you see on the map is the area that's in Cushing that would be rezoned to the new elementary school. And that's west of 3A and then north of the current Cushing Elementary School. You can see those are areas that are currently in Cushing that are going to the new school in this recommendation. Areas in tan that are south of Cushing and right where we're sitting in east along First Parish Road towards Wampatuck, that feeds into Wampatuck in the recommendation. And then areas that are off of Old Oak and Bucket Road and Country Way that are currently in Cushing would be going to Jenkins in this recommendation. So, so this is a minimal impact scenario that we feel positions the district in a good spot for longevity, and so that these can hold as long as possible and while accomplishing our objectives.
This slide just reflects our, as I mentioned with utilization, our approach toward the 20 student per class target. So there's the estimated enrollment in purple for each of our new 3 elementary schools in 27, 28, with 476 at the new elementary school, Jenkins having 434, and Wampatuck having 396. So the percentages on the right show to what extent we're achieving our 20 students per class target. The reason that one of the key reasons we're recommending this, like we talked about at the beginning, minimal impacts to students. We recognize that this is a change for every school in our district, but we want to try to have an impact that's with the least number of students moving as possible, and that the lowest number we can get to is 607. Finally, this is just a refresher of the presentation from April 6th when our principals talked about their transition goals that are going to be in their school improvement plans, which we'll hear a little bit about in a few moments. But each school during the 26-27 school year has action steps focused on preparing students for the transition and getting them ready for the closing of the current Hadley Elementary and Cushing, and getting ready to open the new elementary school. So this concludes the information that Mr. Cropper and I wanted to share tonight on the district's recommendation to the school committee on which of the 3 options we feel like best achieves the priorities of the district. Happy to take any questions from the committee if you have them.
Thank you so much. Presentation. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Cropper, for coming tonight too, and for flying in to be with us today. Do appreciate you coming in person. Much appreciated. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for the internal planning team?
I have a couple, I guess, questions / comment. First of all, I think we all know that redistricting is one of the most difficult things to do in any district, but especially here. And I think that option 3 sounds like the best of the 3. My question is, I guess, I'm glad that we have come to option 3, considering option 3 as a potential solution. But my question is, what are we missing, and why wasn't that considered in one of the first 2 options? Like, what are we giving up to get option 3? From my perspective, it was more of transportation issue that we focused on 1 and 2 and didn't look at something like 3. I'm just curious what we're giving up in not going with 1 or 2 to get 3, which is ultimately what I think and I would like to see. I'm just curious what we're giving up.
I wouldn't necessarily consider it or think of it as giving up and sacrificing something that the other options had. As we were working through options development and preparation for the community meetings, we were putting out 2 scenarios that we advertised as draft, subject to change, to get feedback from the public on. We had prior options that we had developed and drafted that didn't make it to those 1 and 2 maps that were shared at the public. And so when we shared those 2 scenarios, the original 2 scenarios at the second public information session, we got feedback from the public about a scenario of modifications that could be considered. Because when we do this work, we work to empower the public with the ability to give us constructive feedback. So we put together what we call planning blocks that says how many students live in different areas of the district. And we as a planning team work with those planning blocks, but it also enables the public to give us constructive input on maybe changes that could be considered to better align with our objectives. They came back with some feedback that actually aligned with a little bit some of the prior scenarios that we had looked at in terms of, for example, Minot not moving out of Wampatuck and into the new school. And so they gave us some feedback and some suggestions on areas that we looked back at, and actually revisit some of the prior scenarios and aligned with a lot of the things that we had done. And so I would say that the third option is more of an evolution and a sort of an improvement on the first two. I think that when it's all said and done, this recommendation does balance your enrollment at your schools very well in terms of available space, and being able to leverage ups and downs and bubbles and enrollment, things like that. So I don't know if there's any, if there's one thing that may be a little bit weaker on this one than the other two, is the proportion of students that are being split to all three buildings. In some of the prior scenarios, that was almost an even third, like a pretty 33% almost across of the Cushing enrollment going to different schools. What we heard was that the Cushing community was interested in the new elementary school as well. And so listening to all the different feedback, and the recommendation has a higher share of students from Cushing going to the new elementary school and less proportion going to Wampatuck and Jenkins. I'd say that may be, if I were going to look at the pros and cons, it's kind of like when you're getting interviewed, you ask what is your your weakness, and so I wouldn't necessarily say it's a weakness, that this is a weakness, but it is an observation that I had in looking at the recommendation versus the first two scenarios.
Thank you, that's helpful.
I just wanted to clarify too, this has been really helpful because Dr. Rab had made a commitment to think about the 5th grade class separate and apart from this. That's still a process that he's going to go through with those families. Is that?
That's correct. Thank you for that question. So Dr. Abbott stated publicly at our April 6th meeting that once the recommendation is made to the committee and the committee makes their decision on May 18th, then that would give an opportunity for us to look at where those 5th graders, where they've been assigned, and then to try to look at a process, describe a process for those families. No promises were made, but a commitment to look at it was made, and that would happen after the committee makes a decision, yes. This is also a good opportunity. I did miss a part of what I was supposed to say, so my apologies. But one thing I would share with all families is that there are policies in our district, even before redistricting, that allow for students and families to, in some scenarios, to petition the superintendent for assignment outside of their zone. So if a family were to have extenuating circumstances, this is not new, it's already in our policies, JC and JCA. The family feels like that's something that they need to take advantage of. I just want to point out that still exists, and families could reach out to the superintendent to follow that process. So if there are extenuating circumstances that perhaps weren't surfaced in this, or if there's a family that in a new way is impacted, they can follow those processes. It's in our policy manual, policy JC and JCA describe that process. So just wanted to explain that as well.
Matt, you touched on something too that I think is really important through this process, and it's the longevity of the decision and the plan, and that it's not just for today or the next 5 years, but just the financial investment in this plan, the time, the effort, and just the detail and the professional work that's been done. We really want it to stick and we don't want to come back in 7 or 8 years and have families that don't have kids in the district yet be or have teachers and our principals saying, oh my goodness, why are class sizes at one school really low and skewing, we're hitting, God forbid, hitting 24, or it's looking like we're going high or mid-20s, what are we going to do? So I think that's a really important factor for us in decision-making, if not the most important factor in decision-making. So with plan 1, 2, or 3 here, you feel solid that this work is good for any of those choices?
Yes, ma'am. I do feel that anytime we do this work, they hold for a good while. So I don't anticipate any surprises unless something drastic happens with labor, a large employer moves in, something like that. So
I'm not asking you to toss a crystal ball, but
yes, right.
to the degree that you're able to.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I guess on that, and I know that this is kind of part of your projections, how frequently are we updating our census with families that move in? I'm just thinking, because last week, I think I learned of 2 or 3 different families that are moving into Scituate. I'm just curious when those get picked up in these kids might be 2 years old or 3 years old, in our system. I'm just curious if and when we'll pick those kids up in this. But I just anecdotally, I've heard of a few families that are moving in. And I know they're not being picked up. I'm just curious how we do it now and how we'll potentially.
Yeah, we do have a NESDEC. In one of our presentations, we have some NESDEC projection data over the next 5 to 6 years, which shows a gradual increase in the number of students. An increase that certainly can be handled by, by the plan that we have. But other than that, we post our kindergarten registration and we keep track of the numbers, and we just keep doing the work we do.
That came up a lot at the IPT meetings actually, and I think one thing that helped me to feel better about it, because I live kind of close to the new development next to the new school, and there's tons of new families in there, and I would get very nervous about this too. But then what made me feel better is what Mr. Crawford kind of helped me remember, that while that neighborhood is new and full of very young kids, my neighborhood is in fact aging. And so there's this constant replacement factor. And there's also the statistic you have about kids per household that is the kind of the gold standard. Do you want to maybe share that?
Sure.
I felt a lot better after.
Yes, so when you look at new housing, on average, a single family detached house in a sort of standard subdivision is around 0.4 to 0.7 students per unit. Multifamily is much lower, and then single family attached, sort of like condo developments, are even much lower than that, more like 0.1. So they don't, when you look at it holistically, a lot of people assume that you're going to get 2 students out of every house that's being built, but it's actually much less than that. And then what Ms. Fenwick said is the point that I always make is that it's kind of like a balance in your checkbook. When you're looking at new homes being built, those are deposits putting in your account. But you have to also factor out the withdrawals, which are people who are aging, and as kids age out of elementary and middle and high school, there's sort of a net effect of pluses and minuses that ins and outs that kind of give you a leveling effect, and not just adding on top of what you have now, but you also have to factor students that are households that are aging with fewer students in them.
Yeah, so when we look at those NESDEC numbers, they are slightly increasing, but they're not wildly increasing.
Something that I would add, because you're asking, how are we tracking this almost yearly? I'm not familiar with how Scituate does it. I only know how it's done in Grafton, but there is an annual household census done. If or when we get those numbers, Ryan, you may know this, we can take a look at that, and if we suddenly see, oh my goodness, we've got 20 more 3-year-olds. We're going to think about that, and we're going to start planning for it. But I suspect, what I've seen so far anyways, is that it's been pretty steady for a while. But we do get that annual household census. I say we, meaning the town.
23-year-olds like in the same zone too. So that's the other thing to think about.
It doesn't really matter. I mean,
right?
Yeah, you can't predict which of the zones the population is.
But going from 4 to 3 schools is
a huge.
It's actually helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful.
The larger the school, the better it absorbs.
Yeah.
You know, when you have
Yeah.
4 classrooms in each grade, it's much easier than Hatherley with 2 classrooms, right? You've got one bubble, it's really tough.
And you
to
can
work
spread the
with.
kids across the 4
The
classes.
4 classes
easier.
across
Yeah.
all 3 schools is actually great.
For everything.
For all that stuff.
We also already do a fairly good job of managing, because even at Hatherley, I can't speak to other, we've had
A lot of
classes that were large, and so teachers adapt and flex and move, and so we have a class right now that there's like 3 instead of 2 because it was larger, so I feel like we already do some of this.
Yes.
And so I don't worry that much about it, because I feel like
Yeah.
with the numbers and with our own practices around this, we're prepared
Yeah.
for that kind of change.
Going from 4 to 3, a little relief in that.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
A little easier.
Great. Anything else, anyone? So no, we're not gonna vote. This was just a first sort of reading, if you will, of the presentation tonight, but we will vote. Yeah, it's on the website and everything, so we will vote on the 18th, next,
right?
Yeah, we'll
Correct.
vote on the 18th.
Yeah.
Vote the plan, vote one of the 3 plans officially. Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Cropper.
Thank you, guys. Have a great summer.
Okay,
Safe travel home.
going down to Rhode Island,
Oh,
to
thanks.
redistrict another
To
district
Rhode
there for
Island.
tomorrow night, so.
Is it Scituate?
Yeah, hopefully not. All right, moving right along, we have our teaching and learning report for our elementary school improvement plans.
Yes, we're really excited this evening to share our 4 elementary school school improvement plans. I would welcome Principal Oldak to our table, and Principal Reardon, and in just a moment we'll share their school improvement plans for Jenkins and Wampatuck. I just wanted to take 1 minute just to provide a little bit of an overview on the school improvement plan process. So DESE provides some strict requirements for school improvement plans. As you know, the first part has to be connections to your district strategic plan, student to teacher ratios, professional development, parent involvement, school security, school environment, some extracurriculars, and also just a breakdown of selected populations and making sure we're meeting the needs of all learners. So you'll see those in our presentations tonight. One thing that's changed in the past year is that each of our school councils, which are also required by DESE, each of our school councils has a school committee representative. So one change from last year is each member of the committee has served as a liaison to one of our schools. So we appreciate that opportunity to have school committee members helping with the school improvement plans. And lastly, this year, each school was encouraged to have 4 goals that are consistent across the district. One would be an ELA improvement goal. The second would be a math improvement goal. The third would be a goal around social emotional learning. And lastly, our 4th goal is a focus on the transition at the elementary level from 4 elementary schools to 3. So that's just an overview of how they may appear slightly different from last year. And per our policy, this question came up last year. The superintendent is asked to approve the school improvement plans. The committee is certainly welcome to give feedback, and our policy says that those improvements would need to meet the requirements of the superintendent. So that's a little bit of background, and at this time is Wampatuck. That's super. Then Wampatuck will go first. I'll just pull up the that plan so we have it. If you just give me a moment.
Tracy Reardon, Principal of Wampatuck. Thank you for having us this evening. So I'm gonna, like Brian said, we each had 4 goals, so I'm gonna jump right to the goals, if that's okay. But I do just wanna acknowledge my school council members. We met 6 times, we had some great meetings, some great discussion. Some of them are here tonight behind me, but also on Zoom, and then of course Peter Gates was our school committee member. So we just appreciate everybody's time. Okay, I'm gonna just scroll down to goal 1. So our first goal is an ELA goal. By June of 2028, 80% of the Wampatuck students in grades 2 to 5 will demonstrate grade level proficiency in ELA, English Language Arts, as measured by the STAR reading assessment. I just wanna talk about that real quick. We only give the STAR to grades 2 to 5, but we just wanna be clear that we're not leaving out our K1 students. We had a lot of discussion about that in our school council meeting, but you'll see in the action steps and the evidence and the outcomes, we're also considering our K1 students. So we used DIBELS for those students, that assessment, the DIBELS 8. If our students are performing on grade level or above the benchmark in the DIBELS, then that's building the foundation for them to be able to be on grade level or above benchmark in grades 2 to 5. We had a lot of discussion about that and how do we incorporate that into the goal. But ultimately, we want all of our kids, before they leave us, to head on to Gates and be meeting or exceeding the benchmarks. So you'll notice, I'm sure you did when you looked at the school improvement plans, some of the action steps appear to be like things you've heard before, things we've done before, but I just want to speak to that even though they're, like for this first one, it's really our MTS system, our multi-tiered systems of support, and how we assess kids and how we take that data and we analyze it. And remember, every year those groups are changing. Our second graders are moving to third, our third graders are moving to fourth, and so on. So even though it's an action step that we've talked a lot about here, and we still talk a lot about in our schools, it's always ongoing and we're always looking for ways to improve and get better. And one of that is just continuing to deepen our understanding about new research-based opportunities and also deepening our understanding of how to analyze that data so that we're really targeting what kids need. And in our MTSS system, we are setting goals for students that help them grow to achieve so they can get to that meeting or exceeding. So the first action step is really around that. Then we had a lot of discussion about strengthening our tier 1 instruction in ELA, because if we have a really strong tier 1 instruction happening in all of our classrooms and all of our grade levels, ideally that means we won't need as much of a tier 2 and tier 3 supports. So we've already started a lot of this work just as administrators, where we're deepening our understanding of how to support our educators and staff in the building. So we participated in a course all year. We're working to get better at doing observations and giving feedback to our educators so that will help them grow in their practice as educators. We are also going through an ELA curriculum review. So again, super important to make sure that we're using high quality instructional materials. And that is something we're doing at all 4 elementary schools, because we don't want to get stuck in using the same thing over and over. We always want to be growing and learning. So we have a curriculum review cycle, and we are going through that with ELA right now. One of the things, sorry, I should be scrolling, I'm sorry. One of the things we always talk about is there's never enough time, right? There's never enough time to do everything that we're being asked to do. We cannot teach subjects in isolation because there's just not enough time in the day. We're gonna, at Wampatuck, we're gonna start focusing, again, some of this work has already started, but really focus on developing cross-curricular project-based units that bring science and social studies into the ELA as well, so that we can teach those subjects in a deeper understanding of them. We're also working to provide targeted cross-district professional development for our classroom teachers. Super important, especially going from 4 schools down to 3, that, for example, all of our 3rd grade teachers are on the same page. Our 3rd graders are having the same experience across the district. This is something I think we've grown a lot in, at least in my time here in Scituate, but we're continuing to get better at that. So that's one of our action steps. And then the last one is improving writing instruction. Writing does fall under ELA, but it's a little bit its own beast, let's say. We felt like that was important to have that as a standalone action step so that we can really focus on growing our students into authors and talented writers. The second goal is the math goal, very similar to ELA. Sorry, I'm going to scroll up here for my online people. By June of 2028, 80% of Wampatuck students in grades 2 to 5 will demonstrate grade level proficiency in math as measured by the STAR. Again, for the same reasons we give STAR to grades 2 through 8. We also give the universal number screener to all of our grades, K to 5. So we're not forgetting about our K1 students. We are assessing them, but very similar to using the DIBELS. If our students are doing well in universal number screener, building that foundational base, then we would expect that they would be performing well on the STAR. Again, the first action item is similar to our ELA one, is just working on that MTSS assessment cycle, something we've been working on for a long time. It may sound very familiar, but we're always working to improve and get better at that. Same with the next action step is strengthening our Tier 1 instructional practices. And just like in ELA, well, kind of like in ELA, where we're talking about developing cross-curricular units, in math, I'm actually jumping a little ahead here. In math, we're going to look at opportunities where we can include math in our specialist areas. So we have our specials, art, phys ed, music. There's a lot of math in all of those specials. And again, same thing, we don't always have enough time to teach everything. Time is always precious. So the more that we can integrate all of those, the better. So we made those action steps in our school improvement plan. We're also continuing to provide targeted professional development to our classroom teachers, just like in ELA. And I think I skipped one, I'm sorry. Nope. Goal 3 is our SEL goal. You're familiar that we use the holistic student assessment. Only in grades 3, 4, and 5. We're actually administering that this week right now for the post-assessment. We used the data from the pre-assessment this year to help determine what this goal would be. We found that learning interest is across the district identified as a challenge for students. There's a lot that goes into that, not just in school, but also like in the community and kind of in their life. So we decided to focus on trying to build that learning interest from a challenge to a strength. Lots of different ways to do that we came up with. Elevating our school-wide positive behavior intervention system, or our PBIS system. This year at Wampatuck, we introduced a whole new PBIS system. And that's actually gone really well. We've incorporated all of the character strong traits every month into that. And next year we want to add in where we're doing student spotlight and highlights to try to just build interest not only in each other, but also in learning. We as the 4 elementary principals have been advocating for an assessment for our K-2 students because again, this is a 3, 4, 5 assessment. So the data we're using for this goal is really just coming from our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So we'd love to see, and we've been working on that, trying to find one for our K-2. We have after school clubs, and at Wampatuck, we've averaged about 6 clubs a year. We have the capacity to do 10 a year. So our hope is to improve that so that we make sure we offer all 10. And right now we've just been taking staff members who have volunteered to do them, but we'd like to start soliciting input from students on what they would like to see in after school activities and provide those. We have amazing PTOs, and at Wampatuck, our PTO is very generous in offering enrichment opportunities for our students, whole school assemblies, as well as field trips. It's been a little bit of a process coming back from COVID when we couldn't have any of those, or they had to all be virtual. So we've really tried to start thinking about what they do and how they align with our curriculum and also with our social emotional curriculum, our academic and social emotional. So as a way to boost learning interest, we'd like to think more about the enrichment opportunities we bring in to help expand students' ideas and their learning interest. And then, of course, we always need to continue to evaluate those programs. So we have our social emotional curriculum, which is Character Strong. This year, we added the tier 2 supports. Initially, we only had the tier 1 supports for Character Strong. We found that our school psychologists and school adjustment counselors were needing something when they're working with those tier 2 and tier 3 kids. So we did add those tier 2 interventions this year. They're absolutely amazing. Like, they're so good, but there's a lot to it. So like everything, we have this great resource, but just having the time to dig into them and use them. So we put that in as an action step so that we can spend some time digging into those resources and then also sharing them with our classroom teachers. So it's just not the school adjustment school guidance counselor who use them. And then our last action step is just incorporating playful learning into our school day. This is specific around our lunch. Our lunch time is a time of missed opportunity for our kids right now. They're almost like asking for more to do, but they're asking in a way that isn't maybe the healthiest. So we've done this a little bit at Wampatuck. We do play bingo quite often. We do have dance parties. We do trivia, but we'd love to find a way to make it. Right now, it's kind of like random. When I have a moment, I will go there and play things with them. But I'd love to make this more sustainable, where there's board games available, there's card games, there's STEM challenges available during lunch for kids to have the opportunity to engage in. And then the final goal is our transition plan for the redistricting and onboarding of our new staff coming to Wampatuck and new families. We're excited for that opportunity. We love that we're starting to talk about this so early. We have plenty of time to plan for it. Some of our action steps will be making a plan to welcome the new students, family, and staff into our community. We're talking a lot about how we're going to be increasing the staff to meet the needs of the new students coming to maintain that average class size of 20. We're doing a lot at Wampatuck to prepare the building for an increase in staff and students. We do have the ECC leaving, so for us it is balancing out a bit. We have 4 classrooms that are going to be moving, and then we have 4 to possibly 5 classrooms coming in. But we're thinking about how to outfit those classrooms because it's pre-K leaving, but maybe like 5th graders coming. So the furniture is going to be need to be addressed, and the bathrooms. Like Mr. Lynch said, it's going to be the 70th birthday of Wampatuck when the new building opens. So we're excited to celebrate that. We've already started planning for that, and we would like to do a rebranding. We've been the Wampatuck Wildcats for a while, but now that we have new staff and new students coming, we'd like to take that on and investigate a possible rebranding of that. And those are our 4 goals, with a quick overview of the actions. Do you have any questions?
I would just say it was really strong, so thank you. It felt really cohesive, connected to district goals, but also had Wampatuck's fingerprints on it as well. So it was a good process for everyone who went through to really dig into goals and the teaching and learning together, even though I know it was somewhat arduous, but hopefully it felt overall worth it in the end. The only thing I would suggest is when you look at it all together, it felt like a lot to me. So maybe in this presentation of it, I don't know if it felt that way to you, but as you take one final look, I would think maybe, is there anything you would want to prioritize or maybe deprioritize, only because we'll be revisiting this next year and the following year, so kind of maybe one last opportunity to say, you know, gee, of all these things, what really is at the heart? Is there anything that you maybe want to say, like, just because you're doing it, it doesn't have to necessarily go on the plan. So I would just maybe give yourself that moment. Now that you've done it, you've been through the revisions and all that, it's like one final moment to just say, okay, looking at it all together, is there anything that maybe, like goals 3 and 4 particularly, you have a lot in there. It's my only like little tiny piece of advice for you to think about. I don't think it's like a must do, but it was just one thing that struck me as I was reading it today and also listening to you talk about it. I don't want you to put yourself in a position where you're in over your head. My only.
That's good advice, thank you.
The only thing I thought of, but I thought it was awesome, so thank you. You and your team, great job.
I had a question, not just like a random question. I love that you guys were able to meet 6 times, because I've always been an advocate for us increasing the number of times that we have school councils meet. In the past, we used to meet a lot more frequently, and I know COVID, and during those times we did what we could and, you know, got away from that frequency. How did it feel having your team meet more and just being able to get more time with them so you could develop a better plan? Was it helpful just to have that, you know, more time and FaceTime with the group?
I mean, it definitely took the 6 times to do this, for sure. I think 4 goals is a lot, but we initially started off with 3, but we added the redistricting goal.
Right.
So I think going forward, once we get through the new school opening and we're all settled in our buildings and we've transitioned, and I don't foresee us always needing that 4th goal. So even though I know, Maria, you said it does seem like a lot, I agree, but that 4th goal was added because of what's happening right now. So I think going forward, you know, focusing on the ELA, math, and SEL, I feel like that's fine. But this is where we're at, right, in the district. So I think especially with that one, we definitely needed the 6 times. But yeah, but I also did find that we were able to keep our meetings to an hour, hour and 15. So when you meet a little more often, you don't have to meet as long, which I appreciate, because it's hard to be in a meeting for 2 hours or 2.5 hours.
Yeah, you all have so many meetings on your plate, it's hard to add more, but if they have value, that's great.
Yeah, but if they're shorter time,
Yeah.
you know, more manageable.
Yeah, great, just curious how you felt. Thank you, good plans, solid. Brian,
Can I send you? Do you want me to switch?
Yeah, I can switch them. Can you click the tab? When you get to the appendix, yeah. Great, and then I want to go to 125 on the Zoom. Small.
Good evening,
Thank you. Sorry.
Is that better, do you think?
Okay,
I
thank
messed up my scrolling.
you. You can do it.
All right. Mary Oldak, principal of Jenkins Elementary. This was a really wonderful experience. Just to piggyback on the 6 meetings that we did meet every month once everyone had been elected, and we did meet all 6 meetings. We actually had to form a working group to work on the draft outside of the meeting. And I just wanted to acknowledge our members here. Just our parents are so active and engaged, and our staff who really pushed us to really focus on Jenkins specific action items. And I really wanted to thank Carrie Gorkowski also for her insight and advice from more of a district level look at what we were thinking about, and it was really, really helpful. And so those are our members. We had 3 parents and the staff members and a community member, Kate Duffy, who is a retired 5th grade teacher from Jenkins, and Dr. Gorkowski. Okay, I wanted to just look at page 3 for a minute and just say that Jenkins, just to mention the size of the school. Right now we have 338 students approximately, and our average class size this year and projected for next year is running around 18.6, 18.2, which is well within our goal as a district of an average class size of 20. I did want to just skip down to slide 6 here and just say that our populations for our high needs group, our select student populations, generally reflect that of the district and certainly much more favorable than that of the state overall. We do run a little bit higher in our low-income population and our English language learners than the balance of the district. And we're going to just jump down and get started with the first goal. So as Principal Reardon discussed, we all have the same ELA goal and the same math goal. So I'm going to start with our ELA goal. You'll see under data rationale in the fall of 2025, 61.1 of our students in grades 2 to 5 had grade level proficiency in the reading assessment as measured by STAR. Our goal is that by the end of 2028, June of 2028, that 80% of our students will have that proficiency. So looking at that 61.1 in the fall, we did we saw an increase in that in the middle of the year. Our students are now at 64.3, so we're on the path, we're moving ahead. And we were able to adjust our interim goals, just stepping towards that 80%. You can see that those 3 bullets there for the end of the year for 26, 27, and 28, how we'll be marching towards that 80% proficiency. As we look at the action items for Jenkins, I did just want to highlight and reiterate something that Principal Reardon said. There are so many district-wide initiatives that you will see in all of our action plans, and we can say, yes, we're doing those, we're all doing those, but I think it's really, really important to recognize that all of these, almost all of them, are brand new this year. Our ELA curriculum review just got started. Our grade level data meetings that we have, which now incorporate all of our academic and SEL data, that's brand new this school year. We've been through 2 cycles of that. We've gotten open architects up and operating, and that's a central way for us to look at students, all students in our schools across the district. And it's just so much more productive and efficient for us. And then our cross-district PD with our teachers, where they're meeting with each other, all the 3rd grade teachers across the district, all the 4th grade teachers, every grade level for both ELA, math, science, and social studies, where they're sharing this alignment. So, it's all things that we are doing, but I think it's really important that we have to give this time to work. We've really just been through 1 cycle or 2 cycles for the work that we started this year, and I think we're really going to see the payoff on that as we move forward next year and into our 3rd year of our plan. It's really was very important to my school council, it sounds like, as it was to Wampatuck, who really recognized that K-1, our kindergarten and 1st grade supports are really what my school council called our feeder system, if you will, for 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that we need to maintain and continue to focus and strengthen on those early literacy supports. So you will see that mentioned in our action steps as well. What we also put in every goal, you'll see a statement and an action step around just focusing on equitable resources as we transition from 4 to 3 schools. Jenkins will be taking on probably 5 classrooms of students, around 100 new students. And we want to, as a school community, ensure that the students have the same equitable access to all supports in terms of class size, specialists, special ed supports,
And so you'll see that repeated in every single one of our goals. The Jenkins specific action plan for ELA or for reading, you'll see the theme of writing, I think, in all of our school improvement plans. And at Jenkins, what we're going to be looking at is our vertical alignment from K through 5 in terms of identifying any gaps and working on the skill mastery across that continuum. And the teachers will be able to have that time in their collaborative planning time, which they have twice a week, as well as our collaborative staff meetings that we have now developed. That's new this year as well. So they will have plenty of time for us to make sure those meetings are happening, that K can meet with one can meet with 2, so that we can formulate this plan. And we're really excited about creating writing portfolios that will travel with the kids from the time that they start. They're just really powerful when you have a folder of a child's writing, say when they're in 3rd grade, that contains their writing all the way back even to K. If they've been with us that long, it's a really powerful exercise for them to see their growth, and for parents too, to see that at conferences. And it's really fun to be able to give their writing samples to them, and they can see their growth over time. So moving on to our next goal for math. There we go. So similarly for reading, we have the 80% proficiency goal for mathematics. And in the fall of 2025, Jenkins had 65% of our students at proficiency. In the middle of the year, that had grown, not a lot, but we're still headed in the right direction to 66.5%. So we were able to work out our interim goals for June of 26, 27, and 28, showing the progression towards 80%, which we will be monitoring through all of the systems that we have in place that are in our action plan. All of the initiatives that we have started this year for reading carry over to math as well. Our cross-district PD, our data meetings, our MTSS process. So the Jenkins specific action plan, I'm not sure what slide that's on, for math, here we go, is similarly to Wampatuck, is at the targeted cross-district, I'm sorry, I lost my spot there. Yeah, cross-curricular opportunities to increase the application of math across science, social studies, reading. And we do have some of that happening now, but the kids, the students really do enjoy when they have more project-based and more connection across the content areas. So that's something we're going to be looking at as well. It's exciting to hear that other schools are doing that too. I think there's an opportunity for us to really share and learn from each other. Okay, moving on to the 3rd goal. As Principal Reardon mentioned, the learning interest has been identified as an area of challenge for all of our schools, which is alarming because we are a school and talking about learning interest being a challenge. And so our school council is really interested in understanding more about what exactly does that mean. The HSA that the 3rd graders take has 41 questions. The version that 4 and 5 take has 86 questions. And within that, there are 4 questions around learning interest. And they are, I like to learn new things. I try to learn new things outside of school. I want to learn as much as I can whenever I can. And I'm curious about new ideas. So these questions are interesting because they also mention outside of school. So it also led to a discussion, which was a real topic of interest for the Jenkins School Council around screen time, video games, what are the kids doing outside of school, and which is a much bigger conversation. So as a school community, the way that we chose to tackle this is by asking the kids, what are you interested in learning more about? So we are going to be surveying the students before school gets out about what they are interested in learning about. What are they curious about? We're going to use the word curious and curious sharks. And we're going to take those surveys and probably organize it by grade level band, K to 2 and 3 to 5, and see what it is that they're interested in learning about, and leverage that information in several different ways. The first one is clubs, then our enrichment offerings, field trips, and maybe classroom opportunities through the WIN block. So we're really excited about leveraging the club opportunities. As Principal Reardon mentioned, we have 10 club stipends that we can use per school year, plus 3 for our lit clubs. And at Jenkins, we don't run a fall session, we only run lit in the fall. Just organizationally, it just has worked better for our school. And in the winter and spring sessions, we use those 10 stipends. They all get used. So there's an opportunity to run a fall session and use community volunteers. And we've already had discussions with the PTO. They're all very excited about, we're going to provide them with these survey ideas that the kids have, things that they're interested in learning about, and creating a fall session that's run by community volunteers with the, that it needs to be cost-free, just like our other clubs are, and focused on these topics. And so we're really excited to see how that goes this coming fall. Using that same survey information, we're going to be looking at how to incorporate those thoughts and ideas into our field trips, our enrichment offerings that are funded by the PTO, incredibly generous assemblies that we continue to have there. We have a PTO volunteer that is all she does is look at programs for us and bring them to Jenkins. And the last action item is maybe being able to weave this into WIN block somehow, kind of an independent study, if there's a topic that a student's particularly interested in, and that is more the 27-28 school year once we get this up and running and get a feel for how we could implement that within the WIN block. So that is our third goal around learning interest. And our fourth goal is around the transition to our new elementary school and being able to welcome our new families to Jenkins and our new staff members. Jenkins is going to be celebrating our 125th anniversary, and we really want to celebrate just the evolution of Jenkins over time, and that welcoming our new staff and families and students is just an evolution of Jenkins over time. This current building has been in place since 2001, but it is the third Jenkins school to be on this property. It was given to the town by the Jenkins family with a stipulation that the land only be used for a school. So that's really a wonderful heritage. The backfield was donated by a family whose property is adjacent to the school, who just is incidentally our nurse Conway, that's her family. So it's just wonderful community connections. Again, you'll see that we want to be sure we're securing appropriate staffing to maintain class size, intervention, and special education supports with the addition of our new students. That we're preparing our facilities for the addition of the classrooms of students. For this summer, for example, we're going to be reworking the systems for our network hubs that are antiquated, and we need, some of them are in classrooms and are very noisy. We're going to be pulling those out. And then, you know, outfitting the classrooms with appropriate furnishings, and we're going to have to move staff around the building, consolidate some specialist spaces and things like that. But I feel very comfortable in opening up 5 new classrooms at Jenkins. We have the space to do that, and they'll be in, you know, just traditional classrooms that are being used for other purposes at this time. Okay, so that's goal 4 for Jenkins. Anybody have any questions?
I just had one thing. I thought it was great. Again, Mary, thank you. I really liked, again, the cohesiveness. It just feels a lot different and in a good way that we had together. One question or something to maybe think about as you think about putting the final details on it is in your goals 1 and 2, I was just thinking about putting perhaps a little more detail in bridging the gap between sort of like where your data is and where you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was reading it, I think there's a lot in there about assessment and win and making sure you're knowing what the kids need. But I was wondering if you would think about adding a little bit more to the teaching and learning tier 1 piece.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have the ELA and the portfolios. That's not assessed on STAR, so you won't see that, you know.
Right.
And so I was just thinking about how you will see, like how that change would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've thought of it, but it's
Right.
maybe not documented. And so I was just thinking that might be something to think about for you to add into goals.
Yeah, thank you for that.
As I was looking it over.
Yes, and I think for reading, the way that I think we tried to include that was through the ELA curriculum review.
Okay.
But that's in process right now. But for math, I can see where that could be more fleshed out.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I know you're doing it, so I was
Right.
just thinking it might be
Calling
worth
it out.
calling out or making it a little bit more obvious.
Okay.
That was the only thing that I just left me wondering.
Thank
Something
you.
to consider. But otherwise, I thought it was great. Thank you so much.
I love the curious heart.
Very cute. Thank you.
Yeah, ask the kids what they're interested in, and maybe that will result in them saying.
Cannot
"We
wait
like
to see what it is.
That's
Yeah.
great, idea.
Thank you.
So something for us to think about is these learning interests and how it's come up across all 4 schools and
So
how
that-
those questions are sort of asking about learning and not only within the school day. It's just something for us to explore further.
That was gonna be
Yeah.
almost like my question slash comment,
Kind of
was
forward.
I'm not on an elementary school council, I'm on the school council. So these have been really cool to read from an outsider's perspective even. But what you said about when made me think about my middle school hat, and what's going on there with Win, and talking to Ryan might be interesting because this may be a road to nowhere, but just the thought of what they do there and how that Win walk looks and the different sort of interests that come and how that's structured, and maybe there may be some cool design of how things are being addressed there with kids. The middle school is such a great zone and space for capitalizing on kids' unique interests that it sounds like you're sort of trying to bring that into Jenkins and the other elementary schools in a way that fits for developmentally appropriate,
So
you
the
know,
children,
elementary levels.
they-
So
they have more choice about where they're going for reading.
yeah, there's just something going on at Gates. I don't know, maybe Ryan can explain it better, but there's a little more of that going on at Gates that maybe could fit
Absolutely.
somehow.
Thank you.
I don't know.
That sounds
something
interesting. I'll talk to
connecting.
Ryan about it.
Yeah, or maybe even 5th grade, there's like some bridge there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other thing we've heard twice now, I don't know, we'll hear it two more times, is just the idea about how the goals are focused on the STAR, which is grades 2 through 5, and how we don't want to feel like we're leaving out the littler kids. And I think that it's natural to maybe have that fear or that worry, but I think it's inherent in that goal, right? That if you're not paying attention to K and 1, you're never going to achieve that goal. And so I just want to reassure that that is part of achieving that goal is, of course, that we're setting that foundation for those early years, even though we're not explicitly also having a DIBELS goal. I think I'm assuming, at our level, when we think about the goal setting at the district level, we don't want to have like a million small goals. And so sometimes we have to kind of zoom up and say, what's this, bigger goal? And we know the building blocks to get there will involve other things that are not necessarily called out in the goal. And I just think that's helpful to kind of, you can't say it enough, I think, just to remind people that of course we're not forgetting about anyone or anything.
No
just
kindergartner would let us
named.
I think our school councils understood that when it was grades 2 to 5 and it was STAR and the need to have measurability, right? If you have K to 5 and you have so many different assessments, it's kind of back to where we were a year or two ago, where it's
Too much,
like,
it's almost too much.
like how did we hit it or did we not? Because there's so many different things to consider. But I think our school councils understood the 2 to 5 and the STAR, and as my school council called it, the feeder system. They just wanted to acknowledge it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think it's good to say, and we want people to know that for sure. And then they continue to be assessed out all the way. Right. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks so much. Next, I'd like to welcome Principal Shula and Principal Sheehan to the table, who present our Hadley Elementary School and Cushing Elementary School improvement plans.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Sheehan. I'm the principal of Hatherley Elementary School. And I want to take just a moment, just as everyone did, but to recognize our school council members. This process was amazing, and with their dedication, they're willing to give up their own time. And just the amount of thoughtfulness and the questions that they were willing to ask has made this document so much better than it was before. And so I really do feel very lucky to have had them on the team, and they really care about the Hatherley community. So just the same as the other two schools, we have the same, very similar goals, 2 academic goals. First one being ELA, still trying to reach that 80% mark by the end of 2028 or by June of 2028. The data rationale for us is that in the fall of 2025, 67.1% of Hatherley students in grades 2 to 5 demonstrated that grade level proficiency. So one of the first steps that we really needed to take was set those interim goals. What we decided to do is we set the 70% mark as our goal for the end of this year. We are on our way to getting there, but we decided we'd take a look and see where we are at the end of the year, set the goal for next year with the ultimate goal of hitting that 80% by June of 2028. As Mary and Tracy mentioned, a big piece of reaching this goal is within our MTSS process. They did a great job explaining that. I won't delve into that too much, but this is a process that we've worked on over the past couple of years, really kind of honing in on our data meetings, making sure that our win groups are fluid and have a targeted focus skill. And then this year, really focusing on that tier 1, and tier 1 is your classroom instruction. What does every student receive? And Tracy mentioned we were trained on our evaluations to streamline and align our observation process, but within that also was really focusing on what are the high leverage teaching practices For this year, we focused it on formative assessment and learning objectives. Next year, we'll bring in criteria for success. So there's been professional development around that, and a lot of conversations. And that is something that when I'm observing, when anyone's observing, we're looking for those things, which helps us to align across these schools. The other pieces of that, which are maybe more Hatherley focused, is that we want to ensure that we're working on writing. And this is something that we've been thinking about at Hatherley. And the way that we've approached it is that this year we really did a deep dive into the writing standards to see what are the standards for your grade level, what are the ones before, what are the ones above, just to make sure that we're really hitting them and that we really understand what they are. We've attempted this year and started to make some gains with instituting a team approach to evaluating student writing, so coming together with writing samples and looking at student writing and using that as a formative assessment to say, what are our next lessons, where do we go from here? And vertically aligning our graphic organizers and grammar and things like that with the opportunity to move into next year and say, let's evaluate where our writing scores on MCAS are. That's a good place to start. It gives us a view of what our students need, and then make plans for where we need to go next year with writing. So I think it's become a focus. It's something that we talk about a lot. And writing is that bridge to reading. It really helps students to start to comprehend what they're reading, to be able to explain what it is that they're learning. So there really is that deep connection between writing and comprehension. And we're looking forward to sort of aligning more practices with our grade levels and getting teachers talking about what they're doing and what we can do just to improve in that area. Another place that I think that the district has improved in is the professional development. And I want to just give a shout out to our curriculum coordinators, because they go in to classrooms and observe grade levels across the district to determine what our needs are. And then they have a full day professional development for that grade level where they can address those needs and also share best practices. So if they see teachers doing a phenomenal thing, those teachers are able to share, which helps with that alignment across the 4 schools. So that, I think that's a really big part of what we're doing, and I just want to give them that shout out. It's a lot of work that they're putting into it. And we want to be able to give targeted cross-district professional development to our teachers. So we've been doing that this year. I think one of the other principals mentioned that next year we will have an additional staff meeting. It's one of our staff meetings will be dedicated to that grade level collaboration, being able to work on our district priorities during that time. So allowing teachers to have that time to be able to do those things and focus on what we need to do. Our next goal is the math goal, which I'll have up here. Also very similar. Just so happens that however this happened, the same percentage of students in ELA, I've checked this so many times because it doesn't make sense, but apparently it's true. So we had the same percentage, 67.1% of students proficient in math. And so we did the same thing with our levels, looking for 70% at the end of this year. Then we'll come up with what that number should be with the ultimate goal of the 80%. All the other processes are the same. We still have our MTSS process for math. It's interesting to see how similar things are across the school, so I don't want to bore you. We are going to be doing like PD for ST Math, for Math Facts. We are also looking at those cross-curricular opportunities. And then, sorry, I lost it. Anyway, we also have been looking for that ability for our specialists to pull math concepts into there. And this year, we have been able to do that with Laura Burton, our art teacher. So during that second staff meeting, she's been able to collaborate with a particular grade level. She just likes to listen and sort of see where she can find access points for that. So she's been able to pull in measurements, she pulls in shapes for kindergartners who walk in there and they might be creating a dump truck, because trucks are a big part of our life right now. But and she's saying, this is a square, this is a circle, this is a rectangle. It just allows children to see what they're learning makes sense and applies to real life. So I think that's something that we want to expand in future years to other specialists as well. The third goal is the SEL goal. As they mentioned, learning interest is that #1 challenge. And we want to focus on just making sure that the number of students who report that or identify that as a challenge decreases. Our rationale for that, just a little over 26% of Hatherley students have learning interest as a challenge. It is our #1 challenge. I've listed off the grade levels there. There's been a trend over the years that learning interest is that challenge. Our grade 4 is not particularly a challenge for them, but grade 3, grade 5, those are over 30%. So that is not something that we want to see. And as they mentioned, it is across their day. And so as a school council, we really kind of thought about what could that be? What are the things that are affecting that? Similarly to Jenkins, we want to survey students to find out what their interests are, make sure we're maximizing the amount of clubs that we're offering, but also making sure that those clubs fit with the interests of our students. A lot of times, because we are asking teachers to take on a club, it's sort of what their hobby is, what they like to do, and that is understandable, but I think being able to share the input from the students with teachers might kind of open that up a little bit. Same with enrichment, using their interests to make sure that we're bringing in things that might just spark their curiosity. How to make things, how to study things, how do things work. So really trying to coordinate those themes based on their interests, I think will be a big improvement for that. And then when we're looking towards 2028, that's the first year of the new school, and trying to make sure that we're also then figuring out what does this new population of students, what are they interested in? So I'll talk about the transition later, but it feeds into a lot of the decisions that we're making. I think Tracy mentioned the tier 2 character strong, we have the same thing on there. We haven't really used it much this year, it came in mid-year. So this year, just making sure that we're evaluating it, taking a look at it, seeing where we can use it, sharing it with teachers, and then finding those opportunities for intervention next year. One of the things that the school council really talked about a lot was this idea of playful learning. And we want to investigate further areas where we can do that. One of the pilot programs that we did this year is called Lunch and Play in the Hornet Cafe. And basically that was for all grade levels. We haven't done it every month, but it has been pretty popular. We'll survey and find out how all the stakeholders felt about it. But essentially, families and caregivers can sign up to come in during a lunch one time during the month, and they come in and play board games, like old school board games, cards, math games, all those things that you're learning while you're playing. We have coloring sheets on the wall that allows them to have a little bit of freedom. And it's just been a really nice thing to see. We've had to limit the amount of parents coming in because of our parking, but that just goes to show the interest in doing that. So overall, anecdotally, it's been positive feedback, but we'll find out for sure. I know the lunch ladies really love it, which says a lot. So that is something that we want to keep doing. Our 5th grade started last year. They can play games any day at lunch. they get up and grab a board game and play. We've expanded that to 4th grade and 3rd grade this year. We find it a little different with K-2 because they don't always know how to play and need someone to do that with them. So that's something that we're working on. And we want to expand that to be a monthly event and then evaluate how that would work going forward in the new building. We're also looking at exploring recess alternatives for grades K-2. They have a new playground out there. It's a little different for them, not as much room to run, and just making sure that they get some different things out there to be able to do. So just trying to incorporate more hands-on within their learning, and then just building on that as we go. I think I missed one. The other piece of that, when we think about the whole piece, is we decided we would love to have some sort of parent outreach about the impact of screen time on students. So this year, really kind of looking at how we could do that, possibly bringing a group together to do that, to think about how we would push out that information, because it does seem as though that might be a pretty big piece of it, and when you get into your attention span and so forth. So looking at that this year, putting in one opportunity to do it the next year, and then expanding on that into further years. So the transition. Our transition is a little different because we have 2 buildings that are closing, and Brian had that screen up earlier that was about celebrating the legacy and what's coming. And so we want to make sure that people are able to say goodbye in the way that they need to. So we want to make sure that we have an event where the community can come in and see the building before it closes. There's a time capsule in there in the front that people have reached out about that they would like to see. So we will make sure that before the building is torn down that we do that. So that's something we need to plan for. The redistricting team is already looking at things. We've already had our meetings. We talked about that earlier. Communication with families is such a big piece of all of this. This year, just we were having that timely holiday happenings coming out and making sure that we have a construction piece in there. There's a lot for us to share about parking and about events and other things of that nature, but just making sure that we're continuing to give out that information over the next couple of years. We want to make sure that we're welcoming new students and families. This year we created a new onboarding packet that we shared with new families. We're going to be developing that for the new building. That will be put out to all students in the new building and all families in the new building. Making sure that we're talking about the exciting things that we get to do, because we get to create a whole new set of core values for the new building, new mascot, new everything. It is, they are 2 new schools. It might be on the grounds of Haviland School, but it's new staff, new families, everything. So that is something that we're really starting to think about and making sure that we're communicating that with families, that families and students have a voice in that process, staff has a voice in that process. Next year, we want to be able to hold, a meet and greet. 4 families put out that information, and sorry, that was by October 2027, holding the meet and greet, but, in the summer, things like that, making sure that staff, students, and families have the opportunity to meet each other, be able to combine the PTOs together, school councils together. Making sure that we're really focused on the academic and social emotional support for students, and making sure that we're ready to provide that, because change is difficult. And people will be coming in with different types of issues, but we need to be ready to provide that. and have that transition support. Make sure that our staff are able to provide that transitional support and help students make new connections and make new friends, meet new staff. The idea of staff, there's going to be new staff. There's new teams, new staff. We want to look forward to identifying ways to develop connections for the staff in the new school, ensure that staff understand the expectations and the updated enrollment, the schedules, all the support systems that exist so that we're all on the same page. Hold transition meetings with all grade levels to gain an understanding of the students' strengths and challenges. And just making sure that we're starting on a positive note and that we are ready for that big transition. And that is everything we need. Does anyone have any questions?
Just because you said change is difficult, but it also presents opportunities.
Yes,
It can be very exciting.
it can be.
Yes.
It can
will
be.
be difficult, but it also exciting.
Yes.
The momentum will rise. Yes.
Yes.
Especially, it's exciting. Shiny stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to start
Yeah.
something with
Yeah.
with your voice.
Be a really cool space.
Yes.
I don't know what my question is. I have more of a wondering, and I see this playful learning across all of and Mary and I had some conversations about it. I would just love for us as a district to be mindful of when students take the HSA and it says learning interest, and it says I'm learning this or I'm learning. If playful learning is gonna work, we're gonna have to figure out ways to make sure we're using language that connects games at lunch with learning. Right? And so I just want to be really intentional that that's being, right? Because I don't know, I think about my kids, because they love playing games at Hatherley. And I think about whether or not my twins would associate game time at the cafeteria with learning interests. So just sort of that was what I was thinking about in my brain about sort of how we communicate that.
Sure.
The other thought I have is I appreciate, and I've heard it a lot, the concern over screen time. But I also want to be really mindful, it's not a but, it's an and, that the research is really mixed. That we know that technology, including AI, is also opening a lot of doors and opportunities and could actually arguably spark learning interests. And so if we have programming about screen time, I just want to make sure that we're bringing in all of that and that there isn't a no screen time. Because what I found really interesting, because Mary was great, she brought in, I have to say I love working with Mary and I was so grateful that she invited me, but she brought in data about how many minutes their students actually use screens in school. And she said to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my interpretation was it's really as low as it can be. And so I just want parents and families to hear that our students actually aren't overly using screens in school right now. At least that's what the data said. And so anyway, just things I'm thinking about.
My thoughts around that is, again, first of all, learning interest, it's 4 questions.
Yeah.
However, we see it in front of us.
Yeah.
Every day. There's also, I would agree, I do not believe that our students in school are on screens for too long. And part of what it makes this challenging to tackle is that there are benefits and drawbacks. There are different types of screens. And some are more valuable than others. But I think the point of it being on here is that we often hear just screen time, screen time, screen time. However, there's so much more involved in that. And what is a good use of that time and what isn't. And so that's really where I think it would be going.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great conversation. I just want us to make sure it's a sort of full and comprehensive with different perspectives and, like you said, good screen time and not so good screen time. And, so I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. I agree. I actually wrote down the same thing, learning interests piece, and I was curious, like, I didn't even want to go into it too deep today because I was kind of curious more about that HSA question in general, and kids even understand like what they're being asked in that,
yeah.
like, because that seems like such a high number for just our
Hard to
students
know.
to even respond like that. So I had like bigger questions even about it, but so I'm glad you mentioned it, Terry, just in general.
Like a third grade is just being told what they need to do, and like they don't have time.
Yeah, like they know, I don't know,
Yes.
but
Like,
I love that you got to.
Yes, I will
wondering
say
about
to
it,
that
for
point,
sure.
it is a more recent trend.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So that was not, learning interest was not a biggest challenge.
Yeah, so something's changing,
Years ago.
and you're on it is the big picture, but I like, that's great, but it is definitely interesting.
I just wanted to say one more quick thing, or two, I guess. One, I wanted to just say I really liked your focus on investigating the standards as a strategy. That's a very high leverage and research-backed strategy for tightening up instruction. And so I just thought that was lovely to see in there. And I think this is in everyone's plan too, but just the addition of teacher collaboration and conversation around practice is another super high leverage strategy when it comes to really thinking about how to change that teaching and learning. How to go from that, here's the number we're at versus here's where we want to be. Those are two just really nice things to see, and those are several so I really appreciate seeing them. And then the other thing I would add is just when I was looking at yours, the stuff that you've laid out in goal 4 about redistricting is great. In any other circumstance, I would say it's really detailed, and like I would ask you to do the same as what I suggested to WAPTEC, which would be to like maybe take one layer back. But I think in this case, it makes sense because I do think it's reassuring actually in this one case to have that much detail in that particular goal, because I do think it really would help families and the community at large because of your particular situation to really see that you've really thought of so many things already. I feel like if you're on the plan and you reference it, it's going to be built, you've already really started to build it right there. You know, I think you've really thought of everything.
Yes.
So I was like, wow. It kept going, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I would just say, normally, I think when we're trying to calibrate on the level of detail that's appropriate for these plans, that is too detailed. But in this one case, I think it's right. So thank you for putting in all the time to do that and thought. And I mean, obviously you are. You've got to be thinking about it. So she eats, sleeps, and breathes. Every time I try construction, I'm like, oh, lines overlaying. Yeah. Oh, getting around it. But anyway, that was my only. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to present the Cushing Improvement Plan to Kate Schul, the interim principal over there. I want to thank these lovely and incredible school council members, some of whom are sitting here in the audience still, for their dedication, their passion, their commitment to Cushing School, and their willingness to participate in 5 meetings from the middle of January to the middle of April as we pulled this plan together. And without further ado, I will present to you what I think might feel a little bit like the movie Groundhog Day, because it is a lot of the same of what you've already heard this evening, which I think is true testament to the collaboration that's happening among the 4 principals as we prepare for this unique time in the history of our schools as we redistrict. And so I think it's important that our community know that we are invested in this process, and we are so tightly aligned that, like I said, you're going to hear a lot of the same things from me. So without further ado, Cushing School shares the same first goal in terms of having 80% of our students in grades 2 through 5 performing grade level proficiency through the STAR reading assessment. If you scrolled through our action steps, you would see a lot of what you already heard this evening, which is a strong commitment to the MTSS assessment cycle. What I want to highlight that's a little bit different is we fully acknowledge that our students are being dispersed to 3 different elementary schools. So what we have also included in our action steps is a commitment to ensuring that when we pass our students on to their receiving school, their data goes with them and their story of growth and their story of targeted supports goes with them. So we've already started to talk about how we can ensure that when we send our students to their receiving schools, they are immediately receiving the targeted support that they were getting from us and that they need to be successful from the very start of stepping into their new building. You've also already heard a strong commitment across all 4 buildings to strengthen our Tier 1 instructional practices. I'm really looking forward to taking that work on at Cushing, working with teachers on objectives, formative assessments, adding criteria for success and feedback next year. That's exciting work happening across all 4 schools. In addition, another bit of work that's happening at Cushing is a real investment to analyzing a true implementation of a WIN block and how we can support students with Tier 2 interventions through that model. And so I've already seen huge leaps and gains in that in just the few months I've been at Cushing, but that will continue to be a priority for Cushing staff as we work through next year. You will also see a commitment to professional development, which all 3 principals have spoken about this evening, and a commitment to our ELA curriculum review, which is tremendous work happening with classroom teachers led by our curriculum coordinators, who really do deserve a pat on the back for that work. Something that is unique to Cushing that I wanted to highlight is our last action step. 3 of the elementary schools this evening spoke to the focus area of writing. Cushing School Council, when we drilled down with the data, the STAR assessment data, really wanted to focus on reading comprehension, text structure, vocabulary, items like that. And what we thought we needed to do was a drill down of reading standards per grade level. And so that is work that we'd like to take on. We also, which you'll hear me talk about when I talk about the HSA data, we also want to incentivize reading at Cushing School. We really want to create passion around reading for fulfillment for our students. And so we want to develop a program next year to incentivize reading across all grade levels K through 5. So that is something distinct to Cushing School, but something that our council really felt passionate about. I'll quickly transition to our second goal, which has to do with 80% grade level proficiency in math based on our STAR assessment data. And you will see all of the same action steps from our first goal: a commitment to the MTSS assessment cycle, a commitment to Tier 1 instructional practices like formative assessment, criteria for success, feedback, etc., a commitment to looking at our WIN block practices, cross-district collaboration, professional development, and a math curriculum review. Am I going too fast?
No.
Great.
You like it?
Yeah, we're ready.
Is it groundhogish? A little bit
Oh,
groundhogish?
you're doing great. You're
Goal 3, across all 4 elementary schools, we saw the same challenge with learning interest. Again, we've talked about what those 4 questions look like. And what the Cushing School Council really hung their hat on was this idea of student voice and choice. That was something that pops up in the wording of the 4 questions that deal with learning interest. And so what we would like to see happen at Cushing next year, and what we're already sort of piloting, is an idea that came from Gates. And I think Nicole Brandolini spoke to this a little bit, but Gates has a tremendous interest-based club opportunity for students. And we're sort of taking a mini version of that, implementing it during our library time, allowing students to tell us what things they're interested in exploring. And we've piloted this with our grade 5 students. We did beads and board games. We are ready to tackle a school newspaper and crocheting. And it's been so successful, and the feedback from the students is so tremendous that we'd like to expand that programming down to grades 3 and 4 next year. In addition to that, we'd like to expand our extracurricular club programming, which you've heard from all 3 elementary schools already about, but we want to hear from the students. What would they like to be doing after school? We'd also like to implement a grade 5 student council as another opportunity for our students to share voice and choice and ownership when it comes to their learning at Cushing. And we would like to see a student principal advisory council next year at Cushing School, an opportunity for our students to sit down and meet with me regularly to talk about what it is that they love about school and what we can do a little bit better for them. Another thing that came about from our school council, which I think is a tremendous idea, when we drilled down and looked at the questions that deal with learning interests, there is this piece about what's happening at home. And we've talked about screen time, and we thought maybe we could support our parents, our caregivers at home, and create some wonderful partnerships with them and offer quarterly workshops with them that would assist them in supporting their learners at home and perhaps decrease learning interest as a challenge at home. So we talked about providing workshops on our tech tools, Google Suite, how to support students with executive functioning, social media, and screen time were four buckets of topics we thought would help support our families and would also help decrease learning interest as a challenge at Cushing School. Our fourth goal tackles the redistricting goal. I think Christine did a lovely job talking about how we're really detailed in this work in our plans, but it is because it is so at the forefront of what we're doing each and every day. What you'll see if you look at the action steps at Cushing is just a strong commitment to all four principals working together collaboratively to ensure timely communication with our staff, with our students, with our families, to ensure that everybody is in the know about these big changes, because with change comes all the emotions. What you will also see in this section of the school improvement plan is a strong commitment to ensuring that our Cushing students feel good about these transitions and they know that we're sending them off to their receiving schools in a really good situation. One part of the Cushing school improvement plan that's unique in Goal 4 is this idea of a legacy. Christine Chan talked about this from the Hatherley perspective, but we've talked about hosting a Once More Through Our Doors event. Prior to officially closing the doors at Cushing, we want to give our alumni, our families, our community members an opportunity to walk through Cushing one last time. We'd like to talk about creating a time capsule and then some type of whole school community legacy project so that Cushing, although its doors will be closed, our kids can take something with them. Our staff who has worked in this building for decades can take something with them to always remember Cushing as we close its doors, but also look forward to opening new schools and joining other school communities. So that's a piece to our school improvement plan that is unique and might not be in the other plans. So I think what you've heard is a strong commitment across all four schools to ensure that the elementary experience in Scituate is consistent, no matter where your child attends elementary school, and a strong commitment to ensuring that this redistricting process is a pleasant and happy one for all. Although it will be full of all the emotions, we're ready for those. And so I'll take any questions you have.
Everything, I love that they were all similar, because this has been a long time coming. Years, that all, and even if we weren't going from 4 to 3 schools, it's fantastic that all you guys are all so in sync. It's very clear.
I have a question, maybe Tracy can find out. We must have spoke for 4 meetings about that 80% number. How was it coincidence that all of the schools came up with that same 80%?
Well, we wanted to be aligned to the strategic plan.
We did?
Yeah.
But we talked about it forever.
Well, so I think what you'll see in each plan.
Did we not talk about it forever?
We're a team.
We are. Want me to take this, Tracy?
No, I just remember that we were debating if it should have been 100% or 90% or 80%.
Pyramid, the circuit board, and we as a district. All of the analogies, the S.
Yeah, but I think if you drill down and look at these, I think the important piece is whether it's 80, whether it's 100, we're all working towards percentages that are attainable. And so, you know, if you dig deep, I didn't read mine out loud, but they're a little bit different than Christine's, to be totally honest, because we're just at a different place. But the important thing is that we, throughout the year, are assessing where our students are at and ensuring that everybody is making growth. Although it looks a little bit different and our percentages are a little bit different, our goal is that by 2028, we are at least 80%.
Thank you.
But please don't change it.
No, we're not.
Wait, that's still on.
Oh, about that. Change. Fantastic,
thank you for
thank
that.
you. Really impressive, really happy to have you all. Thank you. You guys worked really hard. Students are lucky to have you, the teachers too. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate all the work that our principals do, our curriculum coordinators, the hundreds of hours to prepare the presentation, the work of the committee to set the goals, all the parents, community members, the teachers, paraprofessionals that are involved in creating these. So it's a ton of work, but very valuable. So thank you for the work of our principals and for the feedback. And we still have our high school and middle school ones to come. So this is a very good start.
Set the
We
bar
appreciate
high.
it.
Setting the tone. Okay. Second side. All right, report of the school committee. We're going to talk a little bit about the new school naming task force, just a discussion quickly for tonight. Wanted to discuss adding a bit of additional process to the new school naming. We'd like the committee to consider handing this to interim superintendent Rob and assistant superintendent Lynch to run a bit more process into things. Maybe we could see if they could reach out to the original task force members to see if there's interest to reconvene, set up some meetings with those folks, perhaps adding a few new members of the broader community given the interest in the process has been significantly high after our outreach to the community increased through our survey. We want to, of course, include the work that has been done with the Historical Society, the original task force group, which was, upwards of 12 to 15 people, all of our students, the work that they have done, our staff and faculty members. Obviously, this would be a build out of that work and include that. Ultimately, the school committee is voting on a name. So, and our architect team there is a timeline here, but originally we were under the assumption that needed to be done by spring. Lo and behold, our team has told us that we had more time than originally thought. So we want to take advantage of that and give it the time that it deserves and that building and our community wants and needs. So I wanted to get the committee's sort of feel and input on that and have a little discussion and see what everyone thinks about having Dr. Robb and Assistant Superintendent Lynch expand that task force, set up some meetings, some public meetings, have that, run a bit of an expanded task force, sort of build out a little bit on what's already been started. Comments? Questions? We can put parameters into what we would want that task force to bring back to us.
Just like to what end? What's the? I guess I'd just like to hear more about I feel like there was a task force last summer.
Yeah.
It was reconvened or changed around a little bit and we had lots of students who did lots of work.
Yeah.
Went back to the task force to be reviewed. They voted on it. I guess I'm just wondering to what end? What will Ryan, not that you're not great at, I was on the bullying task force, you're very good at facilitating these conversations, so this isn't about, but what will Dr. Robb and Ryan add that we're missing from the process currently, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Well, I think, fair question. It is a fair question for sure. It feels like it's been going on already quite a long time. It was last spring that we first talked about convening this, but I guess from my perspective, and when I went into this thinking, wow, this is so exciting, it'll be such a positive and fun and cool opportunity, and it has taken a shift away from that. And I think ultimately I would like to see it return to that feeling and not be something that sort of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And I think part of that, as I reflect on how that came about, is the people who were on the task force, I feel like have felt a little bit intimidated, or I'm not sure why, but they haven't been really at the forefront of sharing work that they have been part of. And I think that has created a feeling as though like there was not a proper process followed, or there wasn't enough representation. We did have community members, we did have the historical society, we did have parents, we did have a lot of people, but those people have not felt comfortable speaking about their part of the process. And so I think I would like to I think that if we add, also it was a task force, it was led by people who have shifted away from the
They're no
district,
longer part of
here, so we can't go back and recreate those meetings. Some of them Nicole or I were at, some of them weren't, so I think there's just like, if we go back or we sort of build on that, we have an opportunity to sort of shed some light and say, hey, no, this is how this is working. I think we can perhaps bring that back over to the positive feeling that I think it deserves to have. Obviously, at the end of the day, 5 of us have to make a choice. There will perhaps be a sizable percentage of the population that doesn't like the choice we make, and that's a fact.
Yeah, but it also, but if I could just interrupt for a second, it sounds like you're actually potentially with this process changing the choice that we will have to make.
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
I think for me, part of the problem too was that the original task force was charged with this job, but then when transitions happened in the fall, there was never like a loop back to us to say like, hey, as a task force, here's the criteria we've come up with for coming up with a name, and given us and the public a chance to hear that criteria, and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, or what does this mean? Let's get some more thoughts on that. I think we never had that process step of saying like, here's what we value in it. That kind of, I think that happened in that task force space, but it didn't kind of make the leap. And so I think if we were to reopen this, we can say, it sounds like something that was valued in part of this process was honoring names that haven't already been honored in town, for example. So let's talk about that. What does that mean? Why are we valuing that? Is that something we want to value? It sounds like a name that's pronounceable is something we're going to value. Is that something we're going to value or not? Like, what do we? I think like kind of those conversations, while they may have happened, or it did happen, we didn't have anyone to then sort of close that loop and make it public.
And it's not, we just talked about a third option for redistricting, because when we came up with that third option, because of feedback from the community. So this is similar.
Can I just ask a
would like this to be recommended to the committee by this task force and by Ryan and Tom, and have it come to us from the task force, where Maria's point is
just felt disjointed.
So Maria, to your point, can you just help me understand the process? I remember clearly the task force that was present. They came with like 5 names, something just generic names that they were going to continue to work on. And it was my understanding, or that once we gave this task to the high school students per se, that task force was going to review all of those potentially.
They did.
Did that happen?
They did.
Yes.
That did happen.
Yes.
Okay. And then so between the student suggestions, the Historical Society, and this task force, they came up with these.
That's where we got down to.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I don't understand what.
So I don't think we're saying that those 3 are out of the running. I think it's just, let's take a step back and say, like, why are we saying that these 3 are in the running? I think the task force had these conversations, but they're not documented, they're not part of this public, forum. We don't have task force members who are saying like, hey, this is why we said this, I think that's, to me, what I think would help shore up the process, bring back some of the.
So I hear that that there's an opportunity with perhaps some extended timeline to make sure that I heard the phrase like the build out, like build on the work that's been done. I think that the task that we can take, to your point about like running task force and things like that, like that's what we do in the district. We have access to the students, community members like the Historical Society, our leaders, and we can bring forward a plan, maybe I would propose like the May 18th school committee meeting that would talk about the way we could build on the process. And so Dr. Rob and I could present that to you with a little bit more detail about who would we include, what's our timeline. I don't think we would actually need a significant number of meetings to build on this. So perhaps there's 2 or 3 summer meetings. We should make a plan for what we're going to do with how we're going to expand or build on the previously identified names, and then maybe outline some the values that we would want the group to continue to have. And so I think we can do that on the school side and then present some recommendations to the committee. So you can give us until the 18th just to maybe present a more formal process to see if it meets what you're looking for. We would be happy to do that. And then I would just say, from what I know, that this is a process that would have to be done by mid-August because of the timeline that we're under for the building project. So that's something that we can come back to you with, and then any feedback that you would have on the plan, that would maybe just clarify it, since Tom and I would have a little bit more time to put detail to it.
Yeah. In my brief conversation with Tom, he was saying, like, if we wanted to say, like, we already have 3 names that have been generated. If we wanted to say the committee does not want more than 5 names, like if we're vetting around more than 5 names, like now it's just, why don't we just make the names ourselves then? Like, why are we even asking for any names? Like, why are we doing this at all if we can come up with 10 names on our own? Like, that's just silly. So we could say, could the task force please provide us with 2 additional suggested names for our own consideration?
Can I just also
or
add?
We would not like to consider the following. We do not want to talk about it.
I'm not going to be voting on this at come on, but I guess to add to this, and I don't want to make it more complicated, but I had mentioned, I think at the previous school committee meeting, are there other naming opportunities, i.e., we don't want to make it too complicated, but there is an ECC. Does that have a separate name to the school? Does the library, or does the wing? And I'm just asking that because that may be an opportunity to integrate a variety of naming.
I think that's a good question.
I don't know.
It's something
It's
that
probably confusing, but
I think it could be something that the task force we could at least know. Whereas before we're kind of sitting here being like, we don't know, what are the opportunities? I think at least it would be helpful to at least understand what those are. And look at our policy and look at the opportunities and things like that. And I would also just advocate again for, in whatever process is developed from here on out, to have more checkpoints along the way where task force members are presenting publicly to us.
Right, it can't just be put on school committee members.
And saying like, hey, here are the criteria that we are thinking about using. And have an opportunity to say, yep, okay, that sounds good, because what I don't want to have happen, to Carrie's point, is to have them go too far down the path and then have us say, oh, no. But we didn't have that conversation ourselves initially. I guess I had thought initially that the task force would do more of that work and come back to us and say, hey, this is the criteria we're thinking. Like, I just don't know how you do this without criteria. And not that we have to all go in thinking like it's like lockstep these things. I'm thinking broad, but not like nothing. And I just think that that's part of where we went veered off path, is that we just didn't have those checkpoints. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I just think that like that part made it really hard. Because then when the final names came out, even the task force conversation that we had about those names, we were kind of like, we didn't know what the name the task force were going to choose either, And so, I can give an example. Like, Ann Vinyl was in the running up until the very end, until the task force felt very strongly that there's a vinyl school in Norwell, and that felt really problematic to them. but that's like the perfect example of like, why did Ann Vinyl make it to the top 5 if that was something that we should have considered like a long time ago? Because then that took up a slot. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But absent knowing that, I guess the other benefit we have, honestly, is that none of us came to this committee with any naming expertise, but we've certainly learned some things, and so we can put some of that to use.
So we're happy to come, if it pleases the committee, we're happy to come back on May 18th with a plan that outlines some of what we've discussed tonight, and if you approve of that plan, we can move forward and amend it accordingly if you have feedback on the 18th, or we're happy to do that.
Okay. Policy subcommittee. Janice?
Yes. All right. In everyone's backup packet, there is a memo, which I would direct you to. It's G1, because the PDF version of the attachment did not come through with track changes. So this is our masterpiece. It's like 60 pages. Let me just get it back online and get to it. So it's in the first paragraph of the memo. It is a long Google Doc entitled "The Policy Updates (5). So just to orient everyone to the format of the document, this is the same document that we used a while back to discuss the B policies. So the very first skinny column is either my initials, Ryan's initials, or Janice's initials, because we initially started by dividing it into thirds, and each of us took a third and made initial, like a deep dive into our third, and then presented to each other at our subcommittee meeting over 2 meetings. So it's been quite a long time coming, Karen. It's been really fun. The first column shows our proposed updates with the tracked changes. So you can see like anything that's crossed out would be crossed out, anything that would be replaced with is replaced. And the middle column is the mask model policies that we don't always use, but we often use as a reference because they have a whole team that they employ to write such models, and so it makes sense that we would use them. And then the final column is a note that we try to just jot down in short what we've done to change the policy. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at this. This is just our first reading today. Our idea would be for us to look at these, and we can approve them as a whole chunk. If there's anything in here that the committee would want to hold back, we can, kind of like a consent agenda, we can take it out and look at it more closely. There are some heavy hitters in here that I would like to just point out. I mean, there's a bunch of important ones, but a couple of things. In row 2, we proposed adding a new policy, which is evaluation of school committee operational procedures. So we did not have this before. So this would be essentially a policy to evaluate ourselves. We did not have that. We think it's important, so that's kind of something to draw your attention to. We have talked about that before, so here it is. Let's see, we can scroll down. I want to go in order, so hold on a second. School councils. So BDFA, school councils, we want to revert back pretty much to mask, which would allow us to have the school councils meet monthly, which they used to, and we've established even tonight, they don't need to meet more than whatever we have put in there 4 times a year. It doesn't make any sense. This also allows us to have the flexibility to have members with kind of alternating terms, what you call that? You know, yeah. Overlapping, yeah. So like 2 years on, right? There's not like, yeah, they're not all on the same, yeah. Not all on the same schedule, so that we can have some
continuity,
thank you, of the knowledge of that group, which I think was really important, particularly as we get, into these a little bit stronger SIPs and just everything we have going on. I think it really matters. So that's one that I think is really important to pay attention to. And the other ones I wanted to, school committee meetings, BE. So this, we are advocating to adopt MASK, which takes out a lot of unnecessary detail that ours used to have. I don't know at what point someone added in something about like presentations and just all these kind of extraneous details that just
Somebody was very wordy.
there was a wordy era.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I think that's another one that's just is
It
kind of
was amazing
substantively
comparing
different.
our policies to mask. It's
Yeah,
like, what
exactly.
happened?
Why is
Ours
ours
the
just
same,
25
yeah.
paragraph and theirs is like 4
So much
sentences?
more,
Succinct and. Yep. The other one that I think is important is the EDH, public comment. So this one is, would change the title just to match the mask title to make it a little bit more specific, and then to align more with what we do in practice. So we ask people to identify themselves by name. We don't ask people to sign in, so we could swap that. The presiding chair may permit extension of the time limit in extenuating circumstances. That's something we do in practice, but haven't been in our policy. So again, just aligning with practice. We ask people to state their name and school affiliation or address. So school affiliation is something we would add that we are doing in practice. And then we would advocate taking out BEDHE, which is the exhibition guidelines for public comment, because we no longer would need it. It would be repetitive with the prior policy.
And there was no policy.
And MASK doesn't have that. But also I think that just is clearer for anyone who's looking to come and do public comment. They just have one place to look now instead of two, which I think is helpful. Okay, so those were the ones I think I wanted to highlight. I don't know if Ryan or Janice, do you have any others that you wanted to particularly point out?
No, I think that the more we align our policies with masks, the better, because they're just so much cleaner,
BHE is another example of bringing us into this century. There's like internet chat rooms referenced, but like not text messaging. So like, again, it's all things we're already in compliance with, but it's just modernizing our language a bit. One other thing we'll want to do at some point is agree upon a format for adding a date notation at the bottom. So in some places, we have put the date of first reading and the date of second reading, and therefore vote. So we just want to decide what exactly we want to do and do that for all of them. So some of them, if it's anything that is updated, the language would read that we updated it on. If it's anything that was reviewed but not changed, the date would read that we reviewed it. That's noted. So
well,
just
if we're approving all the, like if we approve them all, they're all approved.
Yeah.
So like we don't have to, like they're all voted on.
Yeah.
So we should just keep approved this date.
Okay. So you don't think we have to know whether we update or review?
No, because I feel like we're voting on them anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes we could also just
Why have one here, like
blanket.
two different,
That's fine. I just don't know if sometimes it's helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know if sometimes it's helpful to know, like.
because we are reviewing them, and then we are presenting them,
approving
and we are approving. This is the first
Fair.
reading of all of these policies, and then we're gonna vote on them.
Yep, that's
So-
true.
So they'll all be approved.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if there was a reason why we would ever want to know, like, it was changed on this date versus it was just reviewed on. But
If there weren't any
But we'll-
changes,
yeah.
would we have
But
put, would we
maybe-
just put reviewed?
Maybe it
Is that
doesn't
what
matter. I
it
might be
is?
overthinking it.
Or is that why it says reviewed? 'Cause
Yeah.
there were no changes made.
Yeah.
Probably.
I put reviewed.
I don't know why I'm looking at you.
Sure.
What was I
Tell
telling
me,
you,
Ryan, is that why?
That's probably
My brain's
why,
frying
but,
out.
like we've been looking at them and we're voting on them.
Yeah.
So
Hit my wall.
I say limit for the day.
Okay, we can revisit that next time when it comes time to vote. How about that? I will do some thinking, and you guys should too, about whether
Why don't you guys
there's
present
any
us with
value.
the preferred method that
Okay.
you like?
We're meeting on
As a
Thursday
committee.
mornings, we'll discuss it then.
We're open to what you
Okay.
think is best. How about that?
Okay.
Since
We're
you're the expert.
doing all this work, let's
Yeah.
get credit.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely getting credit.
Whatever you guys want it labeled.
Thursdays at 7:30, that's
Yeah, I
fair.
think that you deserve to
This
be
is
in charge
a
of that.
54-page document of size 10 font, so we're getting credit. Just saying. Okay, great, so this will have on a second
great.
reading for the next
No, I love it,
time.
it's great. I think Janice's point is well taken. Leading it up to Melissa's thing.
This one is, I like that. Okay, yeah, awesome.
It's clear for people to read and understand. That's what we want.
Yeah. And then next, we will be discussing on Thursday morning our policy IJ and DB, student responsible use of technology. And again, this is a policy we actually did last year, but I don't know if you guys have been reading in the Globe, and also Mask has sent out some stuff about this. And Bessie actually has also had some stuff about this to ensure that districts' policies are up to date with regard to AI and deepfakes.
Yes.
Ish. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it.
We'll ask our kids.
Ask your kids,
Yes, you were. But we just want to do a look through of our policies and make sure that they are up to speed with where they should be. So we're gonna look into that on Thursday and just double check and make sure everything's good. And if we think that there need to be any updates, we will let everyone know at our next meeting.
Yeah, definitely good for us to review it just to stay
Current,
up to
yeah.
speed and current on that.
Desi was very clear that it's a criminal offense and therefore it's absolutely something that is
yeah.
not acceptable in schools in any way, shape, or form. But we also just want to make sure it's specifically called out in our policy, and so that we're doubly covered.
Perfect. That work? Policy Subcommittee, we appreciate you.
We appreciate us too.
I know you want a gold star for your work.
I know.
Okay. All right. Warrants?
Yes, I do have one to
Oh, yeah,
read
there
in.
it is, there it is.
So you've
All
got
right,
one to
scroll.
sign,
There it is.
and I have
Oh,
one
yeah,
to
a lot of
read in.
attachments. Yep.
So I will read in warrant number S260408 in the amount of $349,569.64.
Excellent.
Can I leave you all copies of this?
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, and the date on that, which is built into the warrant number, is April 8, 2026. Just reiterating that.
Okay.
Oh, and when, yeah, oh wait, oh yeah, you don't want to. You don't want to mention, you can go ahead.
Subcommittee reports.
Dying. Okay, no, I'm not dying, I just don't want to forget. I just wanted to say that we are gonna have, Patty Snickle from First Speaking Group coming to our meeting on Monday, next month, we have another Monday, the fourth, I don't know, May 4th, we don't know how that happened, but here we are. And so she's gonna come and give, an update and kind of share her findings from the, needs assessment work she's been doing. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's happening on Monday the 4th.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Hallahan and Ms. Hall, who aren't Spanish teachers and are in Spain right now with 13 students. They're having a wonderful time, but they did a lot of the planning themselves. And I just, I appreciate that so much. I can't imagine trying to coordinate themselves plus 13 students, like flights, hotels, just itinerary, it's just amazing. And I think if they hadn't stepped up to on this, the kids probably wouldn't be going swim. So thank you for that. Yeah, I really appreciate what's great they're doing.
Excellent. Anybody else, anything, liaisons or?
I mean, at some point we do have to discuss office hours, but we don't have to do
We
that
don't
right
have-
now.
Yeah, exactly, I don't think we
I
have
don't think
anything
I
to
have
add.
it in me.
Okay, alright. Guess we can motion to adjourn here.
Motion to adjourn at 8:38.
Second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Hold on, I'm looking for the stop bar. They changed it on me. 1 second. Oh, hold on, I found it.